I spent $65,000 on my daughter's wedding. Her groom walked up to me and said it was the cheapest wedding he'd ever been to. Called me a loser and bragged he made more in a day than I did in a month. 2 weeks later, he vanished from every company, every account, every friend's list. No one's seen him since. At least, not the man he used to be. My name is Frank, and I was a steady man in my 60s. I worked with my hands most of my life and kept records of what I did. After I retired, I lived quiet, paid my bills, and looked after a small duplex. I trusted simple things I could hold: keys, receipts, and a clean ledger. I was a father and a grandfather before anything else. My daughter mattered most, and my grandson had a bed at my place. I paid for her wedding because family came first. I did not shout when lines were crossed. I showed the line, and I held the paper that proved it. Then my daughter married a man who thought paper meant nothing. I made him learn that it meant everything. Here is what happened at their wedding. He came up with a whiskey in his hand and that grin that never reached his eyes. His tuxedo jacket hung over his shoulder like it needed air. He leaned close. He said the words you just read. He spoke them low, so only I could hear. Then he took a long drink and glanced at the envelope box. My daughter floated past in her dress, all lace and hope. She did not hear him. She kissed my cheek and said, "Go home, Dad. We will help with cleanup tomorrow." He put his hand at the small of her back and said, "We got it." He was the man of the hour. He had a crowd at his fingertips and he played it like a radio. I looked at him the way a man looks at a loose step on a staircase. He wore a black watch with a green ring around the face. You could not miss it. He tapped it like he wanted me to notice. "Some of us work late," he said. "Some of us are built for it." "Good for you," I said. He smiled. "Next time you host, call me first. I will teach you how to budget." He turned and put his jacket over the gift table for a moment. He made a show of clearing space. He lifted the envelope box with both hands, just a little, as if testing the weight. He did it in a lazy arc and set it back down. Then he bent to tie his shoe. He did not touch the box again. Not then. The mother of the bride's side wanted photos. My ex-wife pulled me into a group shot. He drifted to the bar. I saw him clap the bartender on the shoulder and grin. He tipped nothing. He made a little speech to the last guests. He thanked the old man for covering it all like a champ. People laughed. I stayed where I was and watched for the small things, the way he moved, the parts he touched, the path he took when he thought no one was watching. I asked for the venue manager and shook his hand. I thanked him for the night. He said we ran late, but it was fine because the groom handled tips. That word stuck. My daughter hugged me again and said they had an early flight. He came back over and pressed his chest against mine like a dare and said, "We good, Dad?" "We are family now," I said. He looked pleased. He squeezed my shoulder. He said, "We will do great things." "We will optimize," I left then. I can keep my face steady when I have to. I drove home in a quiet car with the seat heater on. I put my key on the hook and my wallet in the drawer. I lay down and stared at the ceiling. In the distance, my phone buzzed with the vendor's automatic receipt. I did not answer it. I kept seeing his hand on that box. I kept seeing my daughter's smile. I told myself to sleep. I did not. We met at a cafe near the airport, the four of us. My daughter, the groom, my grandson, and me. He ordered a latte and called it fuel. He wore the same watch and a fresh smirk. My daughter looked tired and sweet. She showed me a little stain on the hem of her dress and we laughed about cake and kids and dancing. He waited until the plates landed. He put his phone face down and said he wanted to talk shop. He said we needed to think about efficiency. He said successful families keep assets lean and tax smart. He laid out a napkin and drew boxes. He wrote holding on top and operations under it. He said my rental duplex would fit nicely in the stack. I am not stacking my duplex, I said. It pays for itself. It pays for repairs in the roof. It pays for the boys' summer camp. He made a little face like I had not heard him right. It is just paper, sir. If you add me to the title, we can move it into the holding company. We can shield it. We can do a state change later without headaches. I will not be adding you to anything, I said. My daughter touched my wrist. Dad, we talked about this, she said. He knows this stuff. He thinks it will take pressure off you. He squeezed her hand and smiled at me like we shared a joke. It is just paper. Sign it. It is my paper, I said. He leaned back and let out a small laugh. I get it. You built things the slow way, but times change. We go faster now. The waiter topped off coffee. My grandson swung his legs under the chair and asked if he could have the sugar packet. I passed it to him, and he made a tiny sandcastle on his plate. The groom watched him with a flat look, like the boy was a meeting that ran long. I asked the groom about their travel plans. I kept my voice even. He said they were going to Cabo for a week at a partner's villa. He said they had business to do there too. He said their banker would meet them on Tuesday. He said he would set up a new account for wedding gifts, so we can track capital. Gifts are not capital, I said. They are inflows, he said. Same difference. My daughter said she would send me photos. I hugged her and the boy. The groom stood and picked up the check. He stared at it like it offended him. Then he slid it my way. You started this tradition, he said. Might as well finish it. I paid. I watched them walk to the car. He opened the door for her with one hand and checked his phone with the other. He did not look back. I stood in the parking lot and felt the old heat in my throat. The kind that tells a man to absorb one more insult and let the day pass. I have learned to fight that kind of heat. I went home and took out a yellow pad. That afternoon I drove to the venue to pick up the last decorations we had left behind. The place smelled like bleach and old roses. The manager met me in the lobby and handed over 2 centerpieces and a garment bag. The gift box waited on a folding table near the office door. It looked smaller than it had last night. Feels light, I said. He nodded. Thought so too, he said. But the groom said he handled all that with you. He said that? Yep. He said you told him to consolidate cards and envelopes. Easier for the bank. He walked them back to your car himself. The manager pointed toward the side exit. We have a camera there. We can pull it if you want. It helped last month when a guest lost his wallet. I told him to save anything he had. He took down my email. I lifted the box and felt a hollow rattle against the base. Maybe 10 cards inside. The slit had a nick along the brass edge. The tape on the bottom looked clean. I remembered the arc of his arm last night, the easy test of weight, the jacket over the table. As I drove home, my phone pinged. A caterer texted, confirming tip amount. Groom said you covered all gratuities. Another came from the DJ. Thanks again to the groom for taking care of us. Smooth night. My stomach turned. I had tipped our vendors myself in cash and checks. That was the plan. We had envelopes for each one. At home, I counted what was left in the box. I wrote down names on a legal pad. I cross-checked with my spreadsheet. The numbers did not make sense. We were short. We were not a little short. We were a lot short. My daughter called to say they had boarded. Her voice sounded bright. I did not mention the box. I asked if she felt happy. She said she had never felt so safe. I told her to drink water on the plane. She laughed and said she would. My grandson sat at the table with his tablet and a juice box. I reheated leftover chicken and set it out for him. He turned up the volume. The tablet rang. A call came through from the groom. The boy looked at me. I hit speaker. Buddy, the groom said, Tell your grandpa we are going to scale. We are going to milk the tradition and then scale. We are a different era. The call cut out. Airplane mode, probably. I stared at the screen. The boy asked if scale meant a fish. I told him it meant the groom did not know when to stop talking. I sat down alone after the boy went to bed. I wrote down milk the tradition. I wrote down handle tips. I wrote down consolidate. I wrote down side exit camera. I drew a square and labeled it gift box. I drew a circle and labeled it watch with green ring. Then I underlined both. I realized my daughter was shielding him before he even asked her to. That hurt a lot more than the missing cash. That's when I made my decision. I won't give up my family or my legacy to an arrogant stranger. I'll make him pay for all he did to us, and we'll call it justice. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I keep everything. That night I pulled a banker's box from the closet and made neat stacks on the dining table. I laid out the wedding invoices. I printed the receipts. I clipped the checks. Every amount had a date and a note line. I turned the table into a map of what I had paid. I opened my laptop and logged into the state business registry. I typed his name. I found 3 active companies with him as the manager. The addresses did not match. One was a mailbox at a shipping store 2 towns over. One was a co-working suite he had bragged about on social media. The third had a home address near the river. I clicked through to the filings. They looked thin. Annual reports with no real payroll. Articles copied from free templates. I saved them all as PDFs. I searched his email from the rehearsal dinner. He had sent me a message that night with a document titled Partnership Roadmap. It looked professional at a glance. It fell apart in 5 minutes. It was buzzwords and arrows. At the bottom was a blank signature block. My name was printed under it. I had not signed. I printed it and stapled it. I pulled their marriage license filing from the county portal. I printed the page and the certificate confirmation. I added it to the stack. Dates matter. Dates turn stories into records. I wrote down the serial numbers for the gift cards I could identify from the empty packaging. Some guests had texted photos the night before with little notes. I asked 2 of them for those photos and saved them. The cards had numbers on the back. I noted the brands and the amounts. I checked my bank account and highlighted the last week. Hotel deposit, band, limo, catering balance, photographer. I clipped the bank screen prints to the invoices. Then I wrote a single sentence in clean block letters on a fresh page. This is what I paid for my daughter's wedding. The house was quiet. I heard the fridge click. The porch light flickered once and settled. I looked at the clock and realized I had been sitting for 2 hours without moving more than a finger. I opened a new folder on my computer and named it with the date. I dragged every file into it. Receipts, messages, photos, registry downloads, license prints. I backed it up to a thumb drive and put the drive in an envelope. I wrote my name across the seal. I signed my name over it. I told myself I was not angry. I told myself I was careful. That was true. I have lived long enough to know the difference between noise and proof. What I had on the table was not yet proof. It was the start of it. I turned off the dining room light and left the papers in place. I set the envelope with the thumb drive next to the gift box on the chair. I looked at both objects. I knew which one was honest. I drove back to the venue the next morning with a fresh thumb drive still in its plastic wrap. The lobby smelled like bleach and lemon oil. The manager met me with a clipboard and a careful face. He led me down a back hall lined with racks of folded linens. We stopped at a small office with a window that looked onto the side exit. He pulled up the camera feed for the night of the wedding. The timestamp in the corner matched my notes. We watched the bride and groom walk by. We watched the bartender roll a cart. We watched the janitor mop. Then there he was again, the groom, jacket over one arm, that green ring watch catching the light. The manager slowed the clip. The groom stepped to the gift table, lifted the oak box a few inches, set it down, then slid his jacket over it like he was keeping dust off. He leaned, reached under the jacket, and his shoulder moved in a neat, steady rhythm. Then he rose, smoothed the tablecloth, and walked to the side exit. He looked straight up the hall to see if anyone was there. Then he stepped out to the lot. 43 seconds gone. We watched him come back in without the jacket. He went to the bar and laughed with the bartender. The manager paused the frame and zoomed. The watch face flashed green. The envelope box sat lower in the frame now, light by an inch. I wrote down the timestamps on my yellow pad. I wrote down the length of the clip. "Can you give me a copy?" I asked. He nodded and plugged in my drive. He copied the segment and the 2 minutes before and after. He printed a short incident report and wrote the date and time we had pulled the footage. He noted the chain of custody. He signed it. He handed me the pen. I signed as the recipient. He made a duplicate for his file. I set the oak box on the desk and opened the bottom panel. 10 cards sat rattling in the corner. We counted them together. We noted the names we could see and the gift card brands on the little slips guests had tucked inside. I took out the list I had started at home. We checked serial numbers against the photos 2 guests had texted me. 3 numbers did not appear in the box. Those were high-dollar cards. I wrote the brand, the last 4 digits, and the amounts next to each missing one. "I can send you a letter on our letterhead," the manager said. "We had a similar situation last month. Police asked for it. It helped." "Please do," I said. I gave him my email and my lawyer's contact. He sealed the thumb drive in a small manila envelope and wrote the date across the flap. I wrote my name over the seal. He did the same on his copy. He handed me the printed incident report. He asked if he should keep the box in his safe. I told him I would take it home and lock it there. When I left, the hall felt even longer. The camera kept blinking a steady red dot. I put the envelope with the drive next to me on the seat, next to my yellow pad. I drove straight to my house. I put the drive beside the first one. I laid the incident report on top of the paper stacks. I did not call anyone yet. I sat with the dates and the numbers until the anger cooled into something clear. My attorney sat me at the head of the conference table and asked me to take my time. His office smelled like paper and coffee. A notary waited by the door. My banker joined us by video from his branch. I put the oak gift box at my feet and set 2 manila envelopes on the table. One held my first set of wedding documents. The other held the camera clip and the venue incident report. We watched the footage together. No one spoke. The notary made a note of the file name and timestamp. My attorney marked the points where the groom lifted, covered, reached, and walked. He wrote the exact runtime. Then I slid over the short stack of vendor texts about tips handled by the groom. I slid over the list of missing gift card numbers and amounts. He arranged everything in a neat sequence and nodded. "Now the other matter," he said. He pulled up an email from the rehearsal dinner. The groom had sent a 1-page term sheet marked Roadmap. Attached to it was a manager's consent page already signed by him. Date and time were clear. The language said he welcomed a limited partner within 15 business days and accepted step-in controls in the event of any conduct likely to cause loss by fraud or theft, pending a filed report. It was sloppy, but it was signed by him. He had asked me to sign it that night. I had not. My attorney tapped the clause that allowed acceptance by performance of the funding. If you fund the minimum and file the amendment, we treat it as accepted. He wrote it that way, he said. The banker confirmed wiring details. I wired the minimum to the account listed on the term sheet. We printed the confirmation. The banker put a hold on any admin change without a second factor, me. He set alerts for movement over a set amount. He added my lawyer's email for notices. The notary swore me in. I signed an affidavit describing the source of the funds and the purpose. My attorney signed a short amendment to the operating agreement for that newest LLC using the manager's consent he had already signed. The notary stamped it. My attorney filed it with the state while we watched his screen. He sent certified copies to the registered agent and to the company email. He set a trigger. If a theft report connected to the manager arrived, admin powers would lock under the morals clause, and we could step in to preserve records. The banker set the lock rules to mirror the clause. We packaged the camera clip, the incident report, the vendor messages, the gift card records, the wire confirmation, and the filed amendment. We indexed each with dates and page numbers. We wrote a cover page, purpose, preservation, not harm. That was true. I wanted records held before they burned. My attorney slid a new envelope across the table. "Take this to the process server when I say," he said. "Do not open it. Keep your thumb drive sealed. Do not argue with anyone online. Let the paper talk." I took the envelope. I felt nothing dramatic. I felt the same as when I changed a boiler gasket at school. Dry hands, clear steps, no hurry. We shook hands. The notary stamped the last page. The banker signed off with a crisp received. I put the oak box back at my feet and stood. I asked my daughter to come by. I told her I had leftover cake and a small gift for her trip back. She arrived in a gray sweater and sandals, hair pulled up, eyes soft from sleep. She hugged me at the door and looked past me at the dining table. The papers were stacked in clean piles. The oak box sat on a chair. "What is all this?" she asked. "Sit," I said. I kept my voice calm. I put the manila envelope on the table and slid out a printed still from the video. The frame showed his hand on the box, jacket draped, watch face bright. Her mouth opened and closed. "What is that?" "It is the side hall camera," I said. The manager copied the clip. We watched the whole thing. She shook her head fast. "No." I pressed the space bar and let the video run on my laptop. We watched the clip in silence. We watched him lift the box and cover it with his jacket. We watched his shoulder move. We watched him leave by the side exit. We watched him come back without the jacket. I paused on the frame where the box sat lower than before. She pushed the laptop away. "Please do not ruin this for me," she said. Her voice was small. She had always been brave. That broke something in me. "He already did," I said. I handed her the vendor text about tips handled by the groom. I handed her my list of missing gift card numbers. I showed her 2 guest photos with those card numbers handwritten in ink. She looked at them and then at the oak box. She reached for it, opened the bottom panel, and lifted the 10 loose cards. She counted. She put them back. "I need to hear him," she said. "He will explain." "I'm not asking you to choose me or him," I said. "I am asking you to look at dates." I took out my phone and opened the voice memo app. I set it on the table. "I need a simple statement," I said. "Date of wedding, where the gift table was, who had access, when you and he left, that is all. It protects you." She stared at the phone. "You do not trust me," she said. "I do," I said. "This is me trusting you to remember." She spoke. She said the date. She said the venue name in the hall. She said the table sat near the cake. She said I had planned the tips and had labeled envelopes. She said the groom told her he would handle it. She said they left at 1:10 a.m. for the airport hotel. Her voice did not shake. When she finished, she wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. I saved the file. I named it with the date and the time. I emailed it to my attorney from my phone. I did not say anything else. She stood and walked to the sink. She drank a glass of water and set it down with care. "I wish you had not shown me the end," she said. "I wish he had not given you one," I said. She left with the cake in a small box. I watched her drive away and felt the old heat in my throat. I kept my hand flat on the table until it passed. On Monday morning, my attorney filed a police report. He attached the venue incident report, the camera clip, the still frames, my vendor messages, my gift card list, my daughter's short statement, and my affidavit. He put each on a numbered index. He walked it to the window himself and got the stamped copy. He sent me a scan within the hour. By noon, he had overnighted certified packets to the boards of the grooms companies, to their registered agents, to the payment processors tied to their merchant accounts, and to the bank compliance address my banker gave us. Each packet had the police report on top and a polite letter beneath it saying we sought preservation of records and that the manager might trigger their morals clauses. The banker called and said the step-in lock could now engage. He matched the police report number to our filed amendment. He set the admin controls to hold and added a preservation flag. He put the accounts into a status that kept them alive but cut the manager's keys. He sent out two-factor resets to a new admin email my attorney created for this sole purpose. My attorney emailed the process server. He gave him the sealed envelope he had handed me yesterday. It held notice of the filing, the amendment, and the preservation demand. The server found the groom at a nice place for Sunday brunch after they returned from Cabo. He was at a table by the window with two men I recognized from his social media. The server asked his name, confirmed it, and handed him the envelope. The groom laughed, opened it, and then stopped laughing. He picked at his phone. His face went still. He tried again. He tried a third time. Two-factor codes did not arrive. The board email rejected his password. The payroll portal did not show his name. The waiter asked if he wanted more coffee. He did not answer. He stared at the window like it had betrayed him. Over the next 10 days, the holds, audits, and board votes moved through, one form at a time. By the end of the second week, his company site had a short update: temporary administrative transition to preserve records. It did not mention his name. His LinkedIn title still listed him, but the profile itself read, "User not found," when you clicked through. His name fell off the About Us page. The bank's compliance office sent a polite note to my lawyer saying preservation was in effect, no funds would be moved, and law enforcement would get a call. My phone buzzed with texts from numbers I did not know. "Is this true? What did you do?" I did not answer. I sat at my kitchen table with the oak box at my feet and two sealed thumb drives by my elbow. I looked at the yellow pad and the neat notes. I looked at the stack of certified mail receipts. I breathed through my nose and let my hands stay flat. I did not feel like a winner. I felt like a man who had shut a valve to stop a leak. That night, my attorney sent me a final screen. The state site now showed our amendment on his newest LLC. The timestamp was bright. The manager's consent he had signed at the rehearsal dinner sat under it like a footnote he wished he had read. By evening, people had stopped tagging him in photos. His accounts went dim and then blank. A friend list that had looked like a city fell silent. You could not see him where you used to. He found my number and rang late. The house was dark except for the stove clock. I let it go to voicemail the first time. He called again. I picked up. "Old man, undo this," he said. His voice had lost its smooth edge. He said my name like he had bought it. "You think you can lock me out? You have no idea who you are playing with." "You called it paper," I said. "I filed the paper." "You think this is about your little box?" he said. "I will take your daughter. I will take the boy. You will not see them. You will die alone with your receipts." I did not raise my voice. "Listen to me," I said. "Last year I set up a trust for my daughter and the boy. Separate property. Spendthrift. You cannot touch it. It does not pass through you. It activated today. Rent, food, health, school, her lease. All paid. None of it goes near your hands." He laughed, but it was thin. "You think you can keep her from me?" "I will not keep her from anything," I said. "The court will keep you from us if you keep talking like that. The police report is filed. The venue recorded you. The bank flagged you. Step back." He breathed hard into the phone. Then, quieter. "You set me up." "You set yourself up when you reached under your jacket in a hallway with a camera," I said. There was a long pause. I heard a car door slam on his end. He started to say my daughter's name and then stopped. He hung up. I saved the call log screen and the voicemail audio to a new folder with the date. I emailed it to my attorney. I locked the front door and checked the porch light. I stood at the sink and let the water run until it was cold. I looked at the oak box on the chair. I looked at the envelope with the thumb drives. I turned off the light and went to bed. I let the whole thing line up in my head. It did not start with the insult. It started long before that. It started with how I was raised to write things down. At the school district, if a boiler failed and I had not logged the service date, kids sat in cold classrooms. That is how I learned that paper was not pride. Paper was heat, light, and working clocks. So when the groom called me a loser, I did not swing at the words. I watched his hands. I watched where he set his jacket. I watched the path to the side exit. I held my tongue because the night belonged to my daughter. My job was not to win a scene. My job was to protect a life. I walked back through each step. The brunch napkin with boxes. The way he said, "It is just paper." The gift box that felt light. The vendor texts about tips, handled by the groom. The call to my grandson where he said, "Milk the tradition, then scale." He was telling me what he was. He thought this family was a system to be mined. He expected me to be sentimental and slow. He figured I would huff and forgive. He did not understand that I keep a yellow pad and a banker's box for a reason. He did not understand that I had set up a trust last year, not because I feared men like him, but because I knew the world made them often. I built a wall for my daughter in advance. It was not against love. It was against hunger. I thought about the moment I first saw his watch with the green ring. He wanted me to look at it and see money. I looked at it and saw habit. People who perform for cameras forget there are other cameras. He slipped in a hallway because he believed the whole place existed to serve him. He did not know the manager kept a clean office and labeled drives. He did not know there were serial numbers on gift cards and guests who take photos of their notes. He did not know that a sloppy term sheet sent from a rehearsal dinner could be read back to him as a rule. I asked myself what I wanted. Not ruin, not drama. I wanted records preserved, money frozen before it vanished, and my daughter free to choose without his thumb on her accounts. I wanted him to face a judge with documents on the table and a process server at the door. I wanted my grandson to sleep in a quiet room with a working porch light. That was all. If that cost him his titles and his logins and his brunch table, that was not my doing. That was the bill coming due. I also knew there would be a price for me. There is always a price. My daughter would cry. She would think I set a trap. She might believe him over me for a time because she loved him and had promised him a life. I could not fix that with a wrench. I could only make sure the facts stood up straight when the wind hit them. So I did what I knew. I copied the file. I sealed the thumb drives and signed across the flaps. I indexed pages. I kept the oak box on a chair where I could see it and remember who I was doing this for. I told myself I would not chase him. I would not post or gloat. I would not turn this into a show. I would file, serve, notify, and let the systems work. If he called again, I would record the details and hang up. If he came close, I would call the police. If he tried to drain what he could, the locks would hold. I'm going to protect my family, whatever the cost is, and I'll demolish his life if he wants to do the same to my family. By Tuesday morning, the phone felt heavy. I kept it on the table next to the oak box and the 2 sealed thumb drives. My attorney called first. Bank compliance had him on the line. They walked through the file like they were laying pipe. The venue incident report matched the camera clip. The vendor texts matched the dates on my checks. The wire confirmation matched the term sheet the groom had sent from the rehearsal dinner. No one rushed. They checked each point twice. "We are filing a suspicious activity report," the compliance officer said. "We will preserve records and freeze outbound transfers tied to the flagged manager. We will coordinate with law enforcement. You will get written confirmation." I said thank you and wrote to my yellow pad. I underlined the date. My attorney asked for the written notice. It hit his inbox before we hung up. He forwarded it to me. It was short and cold. It was what we needed. 10 minutes later, a board member called my attorney on speaker. He did not waste time. "We held an emergency vote," he said. "We are removing him for cause under the clause you cited. Minutes attached. We will appoint an interim to protect the accounts." He sounded tired. He sounded like a man who had been burned before and now had a glove on. My attorney asked about notice. "Delivered," the board member said. He tried to log in during the vote. He failed second factor and sent 6 emails with threats. We archived them. Another message came in from the payment processor. "Preservation in effect," it read. "Disputes and chargebacks on hold pending investigation. No new merchant IDs will be issued to entities affiliated with the flag manager." There were more words. Most of them said hold. I stood, stretched my back, and poured coffee. The house was quiet. My grandson was at school. My daughter had not called yet. I stared at the stack of certified mail receipts and the sealed envelopes with dates across the flaps. I told myself to breathe slow. I told myself to keep my hands flat. My attorney sent one more note. The state site posted the board's change filing. The groom's name sat in a neat line next to the word removed. I saved the screen and printed it. I slid it under the thumb drives and pressed it smooth with my palm. I did not cheer. I held the paper like a valve I had closed. The leak had slowed to a drip. There was still work to do. By Wednesday, he made his first move. He tried to open a fresh account under a new shell with a clean name. The payment processor caught the owner match and blocked it. They sent my attorney a note with the time and his address. The attempt came from his office. He had not learned yet that the lights were on. The venue manager emailed me a copy of the letter he sent to the city licensing office. He attached our incident report and the camera clip chain of custody note. He wrote, "We believe theft occurred on premises involving the groom." It was crisp and professional. He copied the licensing officer and the police case number. An hour later, the city replied, "Application review paused pending law enforcement outcome." The groom had bragged about a new liquor license for an event space. Now it sat in a cold tray. I forwarded the police report and the venue letter to the landlord of the groom's co-working suite. The lease had a morals clause. I asked for nothing. I only shared the case number and the board minutes with "removed for cause." The landlord wrote back, "Thank you. Counsel will advise." Notice to follow. At noon, my attorney got a copy of the vacate notice. It gave him 3 days to clear out. He went loud online. Friends sent screenshots. He called me a bitter old man and a saboteur. He said I was jealous. He said I had made up a story to cover my failure. He said the video was deep fake. The venue manager replied with one line from his business account. "We stand by our report." Comments went quiet after that. He then tried to move whatever he could from a small personal account. The bank flagged it and called him in. He arrived and sat down across from a manager who had the police report number on her screen. He left 20 minutes later, red-faced and tight. He sent my daughter 12 messages. "Call me. I can fix this. Your father is a liar. I love you." They came in a flood and then stopped. I watched him slam into walls he thought would slide. I kept my phone face down. I wrote each change on the yellow pad. License paused. Processor block. Vacate notice. I checked the driveway and the porch light. I checked the locks. Then I sat back at the table and waited for the part I knew would hurt. It came that evening. My daughter called me from the grocery parking lot. Her voice was thin. "He is here," she whispered. "He followed me from work." I told her to put me on speaker and hold the phone low. I grabbed my keys and drove. She whispered that he had parked his car across from hers. He walked up with his hands open. He looked smaller without his suit. His watch with the green ring still shone. "Baby, it was just a mistake," he said. "We were tired." Things got mixed. "Your father hates me. He is old and bitter. He set a trap." She said nothing. I heard her breath. I told her to keep the line open. He tried again. "Listen, we can ride this out. I need you to tell the bank I had permission. I need the board to hear you. Tell them you saw me collect the envelopes for safety. Tell them you told me to do it." She flinched. "I did not," she said. He pressed on. "I will fix everything. We will be in Cabo next month. I have a plan. I have a new entity. We just need your dad to deed the duplex. Then we can refinance and roll into—" She looked at the screen I had sent her that afternoon. I had held it back until now. It was a text from his phone to a friend, time-stamped the week before the wedding. "Get the old man to deed the duplex," it read. "He is soft. He will fold." He had sent it to the wrong thread. The friend had forwarded it to a cousin who knew me. It had taken a day to reach my phone. She held the screen up. He stopped talking. His jaw worked like he had a seed in his teeth. For a second I saw him try to make a new lie. Then the light went out of his eyes. "I believed you," she whispered. It was not loud. It cut anyway. I pulled in and parked behind him. He turned and saw me. He took one step. I held up my hand and spoke in a voice I used with men who thought doors were suggestions. "Back away," I said. "This call is recorded. The police report is filed. The trust is active. If you take one more step, I will dial. If you speak to her again tonight, I will file for an order." He looked at my daughter. He saw the screen in her hand. He saw me. He lifted his hands higher and walked backward. He got in his car. He drove out without signaling. We went straight to the station. We filed for a protective order. We added the parking lot incident to the case. We attached the screenshot with the duplex text. The clerk stamped everything. The paper felt heavy and right. We came home to a quiet house. My grandson sat on the stairs with his toy car. He watched us with wide eyes and said nothing. I told him to sit with his sketchbook at the kitchen table. I set a glass of water in front of my daughter. I took out the trust folder from the banker's box and laid it open. "This is how it works now," I said. "The trust pays for your lease, utilities, food, and the boys' school. It pays for counseling. You do not have to ask him for a cent. No cash will ever pass through his hands." She ran her fingers over the page. "He said you wanted to control me," she said. "I want you free," I said. "I built this a year ago, before he came. It is separate property. It is protected against creditors and claims. If he tries to touch it, the trustee will block him." She nodded slowly. The boy drew a square and a door and a tree. He did not look up. I slid the boundary agreement across the table. It was one page. It said she agreed not to share trust funds, passwords, or access with the groom or any person acting for him. It said she would not add him to any lease. It said she would report any contact to the trustee. It was not punishment. It was a guardrail. "Read it all," I said. "Ask me anything." She read. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. She took the pen and signed. Her hand shook once and then steadied. I signed as settlor. The notary would stamp it in the morning. I made a copy and slid it into the folder. I sealed the original in an envelope and wrote the date across the flap. I signed my name over the seal. I had done that many times. It still mattered. My phone buzzed. My attorney sent a short message. Order granted. Temporary. Hearing next week, I showed it to her. She nodded again. She breathed out like she had been underwater and found the surface. My grandson looked up. "Are we safe?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "We are safe." I hugged my family. The house held steady once again. The courthouse smelled like dust and old toner. I carried a flat folder with copies of everything. The venue report, still frames from the camera clip, the vendor texts, the list of missing card numbers, the board minutes that said removed for cause. The 2 sealed thumb drives stayed sealed. My attorney set them on the table so the labels faced up. My daughter sat behind us with her hands folded. She did not look at him. He walked in with a lawyer who spoke too fast. He wore the same watch with the green ring. He looked at me only once. It did not matter how he looked. Today was not about faces. Today was about dates and signatures. The judge read the index aloud. She asked the clerk to mark each exhibit. The clerk did it like counting steps. The venue manager's letter was Exhibit A. The time-stamped clip and its chain of custody note, Exhibit B. The vendor messages and my check stubs, Exhibit C. The list of card numbers and the guests' photos, Exhibit D. The police report we filed on Monday, Exhibit E. The board minutes in the state filing that removed him, Exhibit F. His lawyer tried to call it a misunderstanding. He pointed at me and said I was bitter. He used the word fabricated. The judge lifted a hand. Enough, she said. We have video. We have documents. We have a contemporaneous report from the venue. She turned to my daughter. Do you need to speak? My daughter shook her head. Your written statement is in the record, the judge said. That is sufficient. I felt the old habit come over me, the one from the school days. When something failed, you did not argue with the boiler. You wrote the service date and you changed the gasket. That is what this was. No drama. Just service dates. The judge granted the protective order. She read the terms like a list you do not lose. No contact with my daughter, no contact with me or the boy, no approach at work, school, or home. She signed it and slid it to the clerk. She accepted the exhibits. She noted the board minutes and the bank notices. She wrote that preservation orders would hold. 2 officers stepped forward and handed him a sheet. It listed items to return, gifts identified by brand and number, any cash removed from the box, and vendor tips taken or claimed. He stared at the paper. He glanced at his lawyer. The watch flashed once under the lights and then stilled. We stood to leave. My attorney put the sealed thumb drives back in the folder. My daughter exhaled in a small, steady breath. Outside, the sky looked plain and honest. I did not feel triumph. I felt a line drawn where it should have been all along, and a door that now closed when we pushed it. I went home and set the court order on the dining table beside the oak box in the yellow pad. The house hummed the way a good house should. My daughter texted a photo of her new lease. It had only her name and the boys. The trustee sent a short confirmation. First month paid, deposit wired, utilities set. It was a clean note. I saved it to the folder and wrote the date. I sat for a minute with my hands on the table. I thought about what justice meant in my life. It was not a headline. It was a working lock and a paid bill. It was a judge's signature that said stay away, and a bank's notice that said hold. It was my daughter able to buy groceries without asking anyone for permission. It was my grandson drawing at the table while the porch light stayed on. He would say I ruined him. He ruined himself. I did not build the steps he chose to walk. I only turned on the lights so everyone could see them. I did not set out to end his companies or his accounts. I set out to prove one small thing that happened in a hallway and let the rest follow the rules. That is not revenge. That is order. I opened the trust folder and checked the boundary agreement. My daughter had signed it last night. I added the court order behind it. I sealed the folder in a larger envelope and wrote the date across the flap. I signed my name over it. I put it in the banker's box with the others. I kept the oak box on the chair. The police might need it later. Until then, it reminded me that people can be careless around simple objects. A slit of brass, a bottom panel, a camera on a wall. My grandson came in with his backpack and set it by the door. "Can we make pancakes?" he asked. "We can," I said. I stood and took out the pan. He washed his hands without being told. He climbed onto the chair I had kept clear. I let him stir. He laughed when the first bubble popped. That sound was the only sound I wanted. After dinner, I checked the locks. I turned the porch light to a new bulb, bright and steady. I looked out at the quiet street and then back at the table with its neat stacks, its dates, and its simple tools. I did not need to watch him vanish from screens. I had what I came for. A boundary that held. A house that stayed warm. A life that answered to paper I could trust. In my place, would you have chosen quiet forgiveness or a clean record and a locked door? If the proof was in your hands, would you wait or would you act? Please share your opinions in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.